function expressions on the one hand, function declarations on the other. Yo, this can get quite confusing. So I just thought, let me throw some examples at you. Let's first look at a function declaration, because that's what we're used to. Function declaration. And let's just have a function called dog that console logs its sound. What's the first step with a function declaration? We have to tell JavaScript that we're about to define a function. Then we need to call our function something, so let's call it dog. We need the parentheses because we may want to pass arguments to it later. And then we define our code within the curly braces. Let's say sound equals woof. And then all we want to do is we want to console log the sound to the screen. And to execute or to invoke this function, what do we need to do? That's right, we need to use our same name and then include parentheses. And there you go, console logs woof. So that's the function declaration. We've been seeing a lot of function declarations. We should be comfortable with that by now. But what about a function expression? Well, let's have a look. Function, expression. Well, the biggest syntactical difference in how it looks is that we're putting it into a variable and it's an anonymous function. Let's have a look. So let's define cat. And that can be a function. But now in this case, bear in mind we haven't called our function anything. And that's why it's called an anonymous function. In the function declaration above, we had function and then we called our function dog. Here, we just have a function, but we are assigning it to a variable called cat. So it's almost the same thing. It's just structured a bit differently. And let's do the same thing. Let sound equal meow. And we want to console log the sound. Nothing new there. And to execute a function expression, again, we just use the name of our variable and we enclose it in parentheses. Meow. Whew. So then you're probably thinking, okay, cool. They both look kind of similar. They feel the same. Why have two ways to declare a function? Isn't this just adding more confusion? Well, it is and it isn't. It depends what you want to do with these functions. And like we just said in the lecture, the main difference is the timing of when you can use these functions. Let me show you. So let's just scroll down. And let me just say timing is the main difference. So function declarations can be used in the entire scope. And what do I mean by that? So let's just say function declarations can be used in its entire scope. And here we're just going to be dealing with the global scope. And I'll show you an example. Let's just return to our say hi function and say that we want to pass in the user's name and just console log a welcome message. So the first step with the function declaration is to tell JavaScript we're creating a function by the function keyword. We call it say hi. We call it whatever we want. In this instance, we want to pass in a name. And then we write our code in between these curly braces. And all we want to do here is we want to console log. And we're going to use template literals. And we're just going to say hi, name. Very simple function. And let's invoke the function. Let's see what happens. Say hi, and we pass in Tom. And yes, it's going to console log hi, Tom. But let me ask you this. What happens if we executed that function before we even declared the function? What's going to happen? Well, look at the comment. Function declarations can be used in its entire scope. Here, global. So if we move the say hi, Tom to the top, it's going to work. Because the parser, when it hits this function, when it's parsing the file, even before it's executed and rendered it to the screen, it's going to have already stored the say hi function. It's going to know exactly what that function is. So when you go and call it, even before we've defined it in our code, it will be valid code. What happens with function expressions? Well, function expressions are only accessible and usable when it is defined. And what do I mean by this? Well, let's create exactly the same function. Instead of say hi, let's just call it say bye. So we're going to say bye equals a function, an anonymous function, because now we haven't named this function. It's going to be passed in a name. And here, we just want to console log using template literals bye and their name. Again, a very simple function. And if you're wanting to execute say bye with the word Tom, it works. Everything at this point works, and you wouldn't have any preference to use one or the other in this scenario. But what happens if we execute, or we try and execute say bye before we've declared the variable, before we've declared the function? Well, let's have a look. Let's move this up. And look, we're being thrown an error. Say bye is not defined. And that is the point I'm trying to make with this. We cannot access function expressions before it is declared. Just won't let us happen. I don't know. It just won't. Just got to deal with it. Cool. And let's carry on.